Hey everyone! Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Jane, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Young and the Restless, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. Before the number of bodies in Nice increases, Carter will take Lily Winters hostage at gunpoint, according to the Young and the Restless spoilers preview video for the week of July 28th to August 1st. Carter will discover that Victor Newman and Chancellor have been listening close by once he confesses to killing Damian Kane. In the end, Carter will act as though Kane Ashby is unappreciative of everything that he has done for him and will undoubtedly accuse him of constructing a trap. Carter pulls a gun on Lily as Kane and Chance freak out in the opening scene of YNR's weekly ad. Carter rejects Kane's warning that he will only make things worse for himself. How could I exacerbate it? It was all for you. Do you want to put me in jail now? In the teaser, Carter says, "I'll find a way out of here." Will Carter be shot during a fight, as there will be at least one more dead character before the end of this? In any case, Kane will inform her that she made the correct decision, since Amanda Sinclair will involve the police. Amanda will believe that Kane is safe, since she will say that the dead will be transferred to the coroner's office and that the investigation is essentially over. Am I? In the weekly teaser video, Kane poses the question. Kane will undoubtedly have some remorse as a result of this entire circumstance. Since Carter worked for Kane, he will feel accountable for Damian's terrible destiny and will finally throw everything off his desk out of a fit of wrath. Nick Newman, who is still in discomfort from his recent injury, will sit with Nicky Newman on the train later. You can guarantee that Nicky will be furious to hear that Nick's life was in danger due to the pandemonium of house arrest. Victor, Sharon Newman and Sally Spectra will also be there when cell service is unexpectedly restored to all their phones. Victor will suspect that Kane knows he's lost because Sharon will question why this is happening now. The France plot is undoubtedly coming to an end because Victor will add that they will get the hell out of there. According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, once Kane returns to GC with the others, there will be more drama to deal with. Keep checking back for more on all the chaos. The chaos raging inside the old industrial warehouse on the outskirts of Genoa City, where Lily Winters stood trembling in the freezing shadows with her hands tied behind her back and Carter glaring at her with eyes full of betrayal and rage, a pistol clutched tightly in his hand, was mirrored by the storm that pounded Genoa City outside. Each drip from the faulty ceiling reverberated like a ticking clock, counting down to something unimaginable, and the air smelled of gunpowder and oil. This was not intended to occur. Not to her. Never again. Lily had come to this horrible spot in the hopes of persuading Carter to go, to give up whatever sick revenge scheme he was mulling over in his mind, but she had no idea how insane he was now. When he spoke, his voice trembled, not out of fear, but out of rage that verged on desperation, spitting out charges of treachery, deceit, and the lies that Kane and Devon had been feeding her for years. As he raged about how everyone had turned against him and how even she, his supposed comrade, was just another weapon in their toolbox to bring him down, he walked wildly in front of her, his weapon flying dangerously in the air. "Lily, you were meant to comprehend me. Do not cast me among the wolves," he yelled, and as thunder roared through the heavens above, the lights in the warehouse flickered. Her instincts told her to run, but there was nowhere to go, and her heart was hammering in her chest. Minutes after he had seized her from her office at Chancellor-Winters, Carter had disconnected her phone and chained the door. She had put up a fierce fight, but he was ready, icy, and frighteningly methodical. And now every breath she dared to breathe was a risk to her life. This was not the Carter who had charmed his way into the social circles of Genoa City. The ghost of his old self had long since vanished. This man had nothing to lose, was dangerous, and was unraveling. Kane had already started to sense something was wrong, but they were unaware of it. During a late-night meeting, he had dropped by Lily's office and discovered her car keys, phone, and handbag, but she was nowhere to be seen. At that moment, he took a strong, deep belly punch. He was aware that Carter had been acting strangely, erratic in meetings, fixated on past injuries, and had just gotten into a violent altercation with Billy that resulted in security intervening. Kane didn't hold back. He called Chance, whose instincts to be off-duty took over as soon as he heard Carter's name. An APB was dispatched in a matter of minutes, but the trail remained frigid until Lily's car was captured on a security camera close to the industrial area. While Kane drove furiously through the rain, Chance called for backup. His mind was racing with memories of every battle, every moment he had with Lily that he wished he could go back in time, and every opportunity he had lost to tell her that she still meant the world to him. She was now in the care of a man who had already passed boundaries from which no one could return. In the meantime, Carter's delusions deepened inside the warehouse. He discussed cleaning the city, disciplining the influential, and using Lily as an example to get everyone to take notice. When she attempted to argue with him, to remind him of the man he used to be, of their shared dreams of justice and genuine change, her voice broke. Carter, however, merely made a hollow, bone-chilling laugh. "You believe that justice is at issue here?" "No." He cocked the rifle and pointed it at her, hissing, "This is about vengeance. You guys are going to watch it all burn after playing me like a fool." Marcus Tate, a warehouse security guard who happened upon the scene while on his rounds, was the first person to be killed an hour earlier. Without even flinching, Carter shot him in the face and pulled the body into a corner as if he were picking up trash. Carter merely informed Lily, "One down," as she shouted and pleaded with him to allow her to contact for assistance. More to come. Marcus's body was outside, close to the chain-link fence, when Chance and the tactical squad got there. It was stiff, bloody, and discarded like a warning. The group was placed on high alert. Carter had previously held captives during a Detroit incident. 3 people were killed in that tragedy, and Carter vanished into thin air. He wasn't scared to escalate, and he wasn't bluffing. The crew approached, Kane pacing behind the squad car and snipers in place, when Carter caught a glimpse of them through the shattered windows of the warehouse. Pressing the gun to Lily's temple and yelling at the top of his lungs for everyone to back off, he took her by the arm and dragged her roughly to the middle of the warehouse floor. "You wish for her to live?" His voice reverberated throughout the rain-soaked night as he screamed. "Then you'll pay attention. And you'll give me what I want." Kane could take it no more. He screamed Lily's name and ran toward the building, forcing Chance to stop him before he hurried in and killed her. Blood from a gash Carter had made on Lily's cheek when she attempted to escape was mixed with her tears inside. Even though her spirit was breaking and her wrists were raw, she wouldn't let him win. Even as the barrel moved closer to her skin, she continued to stare him down and muttered, "Carter, you don't have to do this. There is yet time. Give me a break. Release yourself." Something briefly appeared in his eyes, remorse, agony, perhaps humanity, but it was gone as fast as it appeared. "It's finished already," he declared. Lamar Fields, one of the tactical entry officers who tried a covert backdoor breach, was the second person to fall to the ground. A rudimentary improvised explosion was set off by a wired trip sensor as soon as Lamar stepped through the door, indicating that Carter must have rigged something. Carter and Lily were both knocked to the ground when the blast shook the warehouse. Lamar had been standing against the back wall, and blood sprayed from it. Lily hardly had time to roll over before Carter rushed to his feet. In order to drag her limping to the north side of the warehouse, where an old freight elevator shaft led down to the maintenance tunnels, he grabbed her hair, yanked her upward, and held the gun now to her back. He whispered, "They think they've cornered me. But they don't know this place like I do." Outside, medics rushed toward Lamar's mutilated body, emergency crews scurried, and Chance yelled into his radio to retreat and reevaluate. This was now a ticking bomb, not a hostage scenario. Every aspect of Lily's body screamed as she staggered back inside, but she only had one thought: stay alive. For Charlie and Maddie, not for her. For Kane. For the future. However, Carter's thoughts were rapidly disintegrating. He pushed her against the wall as they arrived at the tunnel entrance, his face just inches from hers. He muttered, "Goodbye to your heroes. Because none of them will come to your rescue." Kane, however, was inside already. Ignoring all backup procedures and protocol, he managed to fit through a service tunnel entry on the east side. His flashlight pierced the dense cobwebs and shadows as he slipped through the corroded metal passages. Then he heard her voice. A little sob. A whine. A fight. With his heart racing, he accelerated until he came out directly behind Carter, who was too preoccupied with his anxiety to see it until it was too late. Carter spun around with his rifle lifted as Kane yelled Lily's name once more, but this time Lily took the initiative. Carter lost his balance due to her sideways thrust, which allowed Kane to tackle him to the ground. The sound of the cannon being off echoed through the passageways twice. A gulp. Then there was quiet. The body of Carter went limp. Kane, who had been grazed by the gunshot, tumbled off of him, his own arm bleeding. However, Lily was still alive. Living, crying, and trembling. Both of them were bathed in tears and blood, the weight of survival pressing into their bones as he crawled to her, unlocked her wrists, and held her in his arms. Carter had passed away. His gaze froze in a no longer burning stare. The danger was gone, but the wounds would not go away. Outside, sirens painted the night red and blue, and the tactical team hurried in as the whispers started, the questions, the rumors, the fallout. 3 people had died by morning: Marcus, Lamar, and Carter. Genoa's city will never be the same. Lily was transferred to Memorial Hospital, where medical professionals deemed her fortunate to be alive, after news sources dubbed it the warehouse siege. Kane was always by her side. Not for a second. He held her hand as if it were the only thing holding him to the ground, even though they hadn't talked about love in a while. One night, her eyes still haunted, she whispered, "You saved me." "No," he muttered. "You saved yourself." However, the fact that Carter had been close to other people troubled them both. His notebook had names scrawled on it. He thought they had betrayed him. Secrets remain hidden. A more sinister reality surfaced as Lily healed and the town started to mend. This wasn't the end. This was simply the beginning. The number of dead had increased. So had the stakes, though. Meanwhile, in the shadowiest nooks and crannies of Genoa City, another person was observing, waiting, and making notes. Millfield, a small town, had always been a peaceful, modest place where everyone knew one another and nothing unusual seemed to ever happen. The neighborhood cafe was often crowded with familiar faces swapping stories over coffee, and the streets were lined with old oak trees, their branches waving gently in the breeze. All that changed, however, on the day Carter Mercer entered the Millfield Savings and Loan with a gun in his hand and a look in his eyes that made everyone shudder. Carter, a native of the town and a former high school standout athlete, was never expected to be capable of such violence. But there he was, his face contorted into a mask of anger and despair as he seized the young teller at the bank, Lily Sullivan, and pushed his revolver barrel against her temple. Customers and staff alike stopped in position, their hearts thumping in their chests, and the room fell into a startled quiet, the air heavy with anxiety. With a low, tremulous voice, Carter commanded everyone to drop to the ground. He held Lily so tightly that her arm turned white where his fingers sank into it. Carter seemed indifferent to the sound of the security alarm going off, as his attention was solely on Lily, his eyes darting about the room as though he was waiting for someone to approach. Officers positioned themselves around the bank with their weapons at the ready, and within minutes the first police cars pulled up outside, sirens blaring. Carter refused to answer the bank's phone when Sheriff Dan Harris, a seasoned veteran who had known Carter since he was a youngster, attempted to reach him. Rather, he barricaded himself in the manager's office and dragged Lily to the back of the building while keeping his revolver by her side. As word of the hostage situation spread around the community, tension was evident as relatives of those inside the bank gathered behind the police barricades, their faces marked with shock and incredulity. Lily's breath came in quick, terrified gasps as she struggled to comprehend what was going on inside the office. Nothing about Carter, a frequent customer at the bank, had ever suggested this level of cruelty. He was always kind and smiling. She could now see the perspiration on his brow and the way his hands trembled as he walked the tiny room as she sat shakily in a chair with his rifle aimed at her. "Why are you doing this?" Her voice could hardly be heard over the sound of her own heartbeat as she whispered. For a brief moment, it appeared as though Carter would respond as his jaw tightened, then he shook his head and his face hardened. He mumbled, "Shut up," his voice breaking under the strain of his own feelings. Outside, the cops were becoming more and more frantic as their attempts at compromise were met with silence. Carter merely chuckled, a hollow, broken sound that sent a new surge of fear through Lily's body, despite the sheriff's voice crackling through a megaphone, pleading for him to let go of Lily and come out with his hands up. Then, suddenly, the first shot was fired. Believing he had a clear shot, one of the officers fired through the window, but the bullet missed Carter and hit a filing cabinet instead, scattering papers. Carter's response was immediate. He screamed for the cops to retreat while grabbing Lily and pushing her to the ground. His gun was now aimed at the door. However, it was too late. Within seconds, the back and forth between Carter and the cops escalated into a full-fledged shootout as the sound of gunfire triggered a chain reaction. The sound of bullets tearing through the walls was so loud that Lily balled up and covered her ears with her hands. Carter was on the floor, his blood soaking into the carpet, and the office was filled with holes when the smoke eventually cleared. However, he wasn't the sole victim. A stray bullet had injured a civilian outside, adding to the increasing number of dead, and 2 officers had been hit in the crossfire, one of them fatally. After that day, Millfield would never be the same town. The questions raged like a building storm in the aftermath. Why had Carter gone to such lengths? Financial difficulties, a recent separation, and rumors of mental illness started to spread, but nobody was certain. They only knew that a guy who had once been one of their own had become a monster, leaving a path of broken lives and blood in his wake. Despite her survival, Lily was never fully free from the trauma of that day. Unable to deal with the memories that plagued every part of the town, she left her position at the bank and moved out. The community was weighed down by the sorrow of the victims' families as they grieved for their loved ones. His once sturdy physique now bent with remorse, the sheriff resigned from his position, consumed by guilt over the way things had escalated. The names of the deceased were inscribed on a plaque that served as a somber reminder of the day that everything changed at the town's funeral service. And as the years went by, the legend of Carter Mercer and the prisoners he kidnapped became into a warning, a somber period in Millfield's past that no one dared to overlook. For the surviving, the psychological toll was incalculable. Many of the bank workers who had been directly present at the events suffered from PTSD, with nightmares of gunshots and Carter's crazy eyes haunting their nights. They started going to therapy on a regular basis, but some of the wounds were too deep to fully heal. Carter's legacy was erased as if he had never been alive when the local school, where he had once played football, took his picture out of the Hall of Fame. Despite their best efforts to move on, the scars persisted. Eventually, the bank itself was demolished, the structure was declared cursed by the locals, and a little park with a lone bench, a peaceful, solemn area where people could sit and think, replaced it. In the days after the occurrence, Millfield was overrun by the media, who used their cameras and microphones to try to sensationalize the tragedy and disrupt the town's grieving. Reports with headlines like "Hostage Standoff Ends in Bloodbath" and "Small Town Torn Apart by Former Heroes Rampage" focused more on the shock value than the human cost. Strangers made assumptions and passed judgment without knowing the whole situation, which only made the town's suffering worse due to the national attention. Already heartbroken by his crimes, Carter's family was made into outcasts overnight, with nasty words blaming them for his acts being posted all over their home. Unable to handle the burden of her son's transgressions, his mother, a good-hearted woman who had devoted her life to serving at the local church, had to relocate. More information surfaced as the investigations progressed. Carter had been drowning in debt, his firm collapsing in spite of his best attempts. He had asked for assistance, but the system had let him down, leaving him feeling helpless and stuck. All of this added tragedy to an already terrible situation, but it did not justify what he had done. The episode served as a rallying cry for mental health advocates, who demanded early diagnosis and improved support networks to keep others from experiencing such a crisis. However, the harm was done to the residents of Millfield. A persistent concern that something similar might occur again has taken the place of the sense of security they had previously taken for granted. Years later, on the anniversary of the shooting, a few residents of the town would silently assemble at the park where the bank had once been and hold candles. They recalled how their community had been split apart in addition to the lives lost. All of them carried the burden of that day with them. Some had managed to forgive, while others had not. Despite having relocated across the nation, Lily occasionally woke up in the middle of the night, her pulse pounding as the memories returned. She would never really go away, but she had survived. Regarding Carter, his name came to represent treachery. He was a man who was previously adored and esteemed, but his last deeds eclipsed all of his previous deeds. The tale of Carter holding Lily hostage at gunpoint and the subsequent increase in the number of dead served as a sobering reminder of how easily lives can fall apart and how some wounds never completely heal.